Hello, it's Denise from Women Beyond a Certain Age. Now, I have a very special guest today, and also I have to give a little of an explanation before I introduce you to her. I went to Tuscany, some of you know, for a writer's retreat last October. And the writer's retreat, a lot of the people that were there had taken the online course like I had. And the woman's name is Alison Waring, and you can find her course called Memoir Inc. Facebook group, she's online. But anyway, the course is phenomenal. So after taking the course, when I found out that I could go meet Alison live, I went to Tuscany. And a lot of you know I've been to Italy many, many times. So any excuse, it's not exactly a burden. Now, when I got to the airport in Rome, and we were all supposed to meet in a little cafe in the airport, the women that were going to be there, and I think we had been told there would be 20 or 23 women there. And we got on the bus to go out to Tuscany. So it was 2 hours to the winery that we were staying at. Well, our guest today's name is Anne Coulter, and I noticed her. I saw her immediately because she's dynamic and funny as hell, and also she makes her presence known, okay, in the best way possible. But the first time I heard her say anything, the bus driver or the guide or somebody was trying to tell us to all be quiet because they had announcements to make. And of course, you put 23 women in a bus and we're like, it's herding cats and we're noisy as can be. And she turns around and her Australian lilt accent said, "Hey, shut up, mates. She's trying to talk." And I burst out laughing because I thought, well, and we all got quiet. And I thought, now that solved the problem, didn't it? None of this little shh or let's listen or anything. It was just, shut up, mates. She's trying to talk. So that's who I saw, Anne, and I thought, oh, I can totally work with this. Okay, I can totally work with this. This is someone after my own heart. So that's my lengthy introduction to how I met Anne. And now I'm going to ask her some questions. I want her to come on the podcast because I have to tell you something. Anne is what I call, and what our friend Pat, who's an aging expert, calls, Anne is aging well. Okay, Anne, that's what I think. It's not, I hate the expression anti-aging because there's no such thing as anti-aging. You're going to age. But aging well to me is what I'm looking for in life. And I have found it in you. So welcome. Hello, Anne.
Hello, and thank you very much. And probably what I said was, shut the fuck up.
You know, I believe that was, and I may have cleaned it up a tiny bit, though. We know that my language is hardly, I may have, I thought you'd say it yourself. Now, first of all, people need to know, Anne, that you live in Australia. So that we bonded when we were on the trip. You know, we were there for 6 days, 7 days. Anne and I we had talks and we ate lunch together and we had wine together. And so when I said to her, I want you to come on my podcast, it was to just talk about the different things that you are doing. But let's start with this, Anne. Tell us a little bit about your background. You know, you were born in Australia, yeah?
Yeah. I was born in Australia in a small town nearby a very small fishing village, which it was back in the day in 1948. And so that makes me 75, bordering on 76. I was the seventh of 9 children. And I have 7 siblings still alive. My oldest sister is 88. She is married to an Italian, by the way.
Lucky her.
He unfortunately died some time ago because he was old, but she is old, but she hasn't died yet. She gets to go to the hospital and have CT scans of her head every now and then, and I reckon she's got frequent flyer miles, but that's another story. So I was born in 1948, number 7, 9 kids. Picture this. Sicily, 2020. No. My mother was born in 1913. This is interesting because she always said she was born a year before a war, but she was never going to tell us which war.
Oh, how funny. That's
it happened to be the WW1 war. Yes. So here I am, number 7, 9 kids. The oldest ones are sort of looking after all the young ones, which is my excuse. I reckon that's what went wrong. I'm sure I was dropped on my head at least 5 times. And that probably improved the situation. I went to the little local school for obviously all of my primary schooling, which was 8 years, starting, of course, at 5.5. And then I went to a Catholic convent for 2 years. Now, that was an interesting experience. Sure, I was going to be a nun at the end of that. Absolutely certain. They said, no, find something else to do. So I ended up going and doing, I went down to Brisbane to live with my godparents, and they looked after me there for 2 years. And it was my godmother who said, Annette, because that's actually my real name, Annette, Annette, good Italian name. Annette, you should go, well, with nothing Italian about it, but it's French actually, but that's another story. Annette, you should go nursing. And, of course, at 16, I have no idea what she's talking about. I said, should I? She said, yes. I said, why? She said, well, because when you're a nurse, you can get a job at any time in your life. You can travel. I mean, to me, I'd only just gone from Mooloolaba to Sandgate. So I thought, well, I've already traveled. It's an hour's trip, but back in the day it was 2 hours. So, okay. Anyway, she encouraged me and probably wrote the application. I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to do it myself. So she encouraged me to apply. Now, good news and bad news. Good news is I didn't get to the Mater Misericordiae Hospital. That's a Catholic hospital. And the bad news is, well, that was the good news, really, because I didn't get to work at a Catholic hospital, which meant I didn't get bedeviled by nuns every day of the week. What I got to do was start at the Brisbane General Hospital. And the Brisbane General was just for all of us non-whatevers who went there at the age of 17. And sure enough, 17 and 1 month, I started my nursing. That was really the beginning of my life, Denise.
Thank God, Anne, that the nuns didn't want you.
Here's my story. I think it's thank God that they didn't want me either, but they did send me off to the Brisbane General, so that they weren't that worrying about whether I got out into the world or not.
And so, Anne, you mentioned many things. So you started your career when you started studying at 17 years old. Yeah. That's amazing.
However, don't forget one quick thing. We weren't studying anything. We were doing the thing.
Oh, my God.
We were apprentices.
I see.
They put us into hospitals and said, go for your life, mate. and let us go. I mean, they wound us up like this, wind, and then send us.
Well, you learn when you're doing. Now, that's amazing and wonderful. Now, so then, Anne, I know that you were married and you have a son, a beautiful son. When did you have time to get married when you were 17 and you were already going to school?
Well, I didn't. And anyway, if I had done, they would have kicked me out of the nursing, wouldn't they? Because you can't be married and nurse at the same time in 1965. So don't forget, I started my nursing in 65 and I finished my first registered nursing certificate when I was 21. So that's when they really wound me up and sent me out.
Yeah.
So I didn't get married until I was 42. See, that may be one of the solutions. Maybe that's why I'm young.
Yeah. That I didn't know that you didn't
I married at the age of 42, and I had my son when I was 43, and my son is now 32.
Yes, I know you adore him. You talk about him with you adore him. You love him to
Yes,
death.
I do. Yes, I
well,
do.
So you had a whole life before you got married.
Yes, I did. And thank God for that.
I know. No, and this is all part of it. And when I talk about aging well, or when I think about it, and I'm talking about me, I have read so many books. There's so many books out there now on aging well. And we have a dear friend, Pat Greenberg, that comes on every couple of months. And that's what her book is called, Eat Well, Live Well, or Age Well. I always say it wrong, but it's a great book. It's on Amazon. It's Pat Greenberg. And she comes from a nutritional background, which is wonderful. But one of the things, Anne, and this is all the stuff and some of the things that we talked about, and all of the stuff that I've seen about you. I watched you in Italy, and you are constantly in motion. Okay. It was hard. I know you sat during class and you were so good, but even then, the minute we had a break, you were out of the room taking pictures. You were taking pictures. Then when you weren't taking pictures, you were working on your phone with, working on the pictures. You wrote. We all were writing during the workshop, which is wonderful. I was lucky. We were all lucky. You shared with us some of your writing. And then when I got to know you more, Anne, I realized that you're just a bundle of energy. That's what you are. And you are.
Yeah. And there are several ways to look at that. One of them is I'm a pain in the butt.
No, I don't believe that.
Well, there are some people for whom I'm a pain in the butt. I think one of my sisters thinks I'm a bit of a pain in the butt because I saw her in London before I came to Tuscany, and I didn't stop walking, and moving.
Yes.
And she and Denise talking.
Yes.
That's my big thing, although I did not talk in the class and I did not scrape those chairs.
No.
That was a serious issue.
Okay. I tried not to scrape my chair either, but I got pissed once or twice. And when she hissed at me, one of the women, I almost stuck my tongue out of my mouth at her to say, stop pisking me. Okay. Those chairs, I tried. And of course, poor our friend Anna, who had the bad knee, every time she moved her chair, it scraped.
It was a very, very noisy floor. That's what I'm going to say.
Very noisy floor.
I think in future, all floors should be silenced.
I'm going to tell you something. It was people, for our listeners, we were in a beautiful old barn that had been redone, and they were wooden chairs on like a concrete floor. So, of course, they made a lot of noise. But no, you were quiet during class. Everyone was, because it was so much information that we wanted to hear.
Yeah, it was fabulous, actually.
Fabulous. So we're eating lunch one day. Anne and I are sitting next to each other, and she starts to tell me about having been a nurse for how many years, Anne? So how many years?
50. I was nursing for 50, but I've only just started back again yesterday.
I know. Now that's the part we're going to get to that, because again, another sign of how you're aging well. And when you sent me that text, well, we can say it right now. So Anne was a nurse for 50 years, and you did retire though, Anne, right? You retired.
Accidentally. It was because my ex-husband thought he would be happy in far southern New South Wales, and he wasn't. So, but I had to retire in order to go down there.
I see. Okay. So I get it. I understand. A forced retirement.
I looked for work down there, but there wasn't any. Anyway, that's another story.
Okay. But so now you're living where you want to. And you travel a lot. I know you travel a lot. And I only just started back again because I was melancholic after the divorce, which coincided with COVID. I understand. Okay. Yeah. Big life change. Yeah,
well, I didn't want to fail. I don't do failure.
I understand. I know, honey. But you know what? You can't think of it as failure. You have to think of it as letting go or moving on.
Yeah, but I
I
do
thought,
all of that. I do
yes, you
all of
do.
that, Denise. Yes, no, I do all of that. And I still feel at some times that little part of me that didn't make it work.
Okay.
There's always that part, you know. That's one of
Okay.
the parts things.
Okay.
That's
Well,
fine. I'm okay with that though.
yeah. Now, I had that when I got divorced after we'd only been married for 7 or 8 years, Anne, but I put him through med school, through dental school. And I thought it was going to be forever. And I couldn't wait to divorce the man. Okay. There's no other way to say it. I was so tired of him and his attitude by the time we were finished. But I will tell you this, much like what you're saying, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners, because most of our listeners are women of a certain age. They are women that are in their 50s or 60s or 70s. And when we hear from the man, we all have, our lives are also different, and yet then they're also similar.
Yep.
I felt a terrible failure when I got divorced. I know that. And then I was from a fairly small town in Northern California, outside of San Francisco. And of course, in those days, they put it in the newspaper.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yes. So everyone knew.
Yeah, but
everyone
that would have suited you, you media slut.
I was absolutely, and you know what, I was really mortified. It was because, Anne, not so much that my marriage ended. I mean, okay. Actually, now I totally forgive myself because actually I now realize that I knew it was the right thing to do, and I got out and started a whole nother life. And so kudos to me that I've kind of known in my life when it was time to get off the stage, as I say. Okay. But to my family, to my Italian family, and to my father, who had only, 8 years before paid for
this extraordinary wedding.
This extraordinary wedding, as my mother would say, it was only 400 of our closest friends. It was, I hung on to it, but you know what? That's all part of it, Anne. It's all part of it, and letting go of it and forgiving yourself. I think forgiving yourself is one of the most important things you can do is to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that, and that's the one thing that I have. You know how the thing that gets you, which is what you said, my son. And whether or not my son was traumatized, he was old enough not to be traumatized, but he was traumatized, of course.
Sure.
And I was much older. Yes. So, my greatest concern is always how my son Joshua feels about it, not really even how I feel about it, because, I've told him he can have both my kidneys if he needs them. I said one at a time is probably a good plan. However, if you need them both, you can have them. And he said, thanks, Mum. Right now I'm doing okay.
Honey, I know. See, this is, oh, God, Anne, good for you. And what a wonderful mother that would give her son her kidneys. Now what I want to talk about is that Anne and I, we're all still in our Tuscany troupe, as we're called. We're all still in communication.
Am I allowed to talk? Am I allowed to talk about you and the food?
Oh, yes, please. Okay, yes. You have to tell now I would have gotten there, but please tell your version of me at the retreat, at the writing retreat.
Well, from the get-go, from the moment the first meal was even conceived, let alone born, this Denise Vivaldo was on it. Oh, my goodness, she was on it. And she was right. And I just kept saying, but Denise,
I know.
You're not here for the food. You're not here for the food. She said, I am. I'm always for the food. I said, no, No, you're not here for the food. You're here
No.
for the bloody memoir.
Okay. And you're one of the few people, of course, by the end of the week that would still sit with me, because by then I'd burned everyone else out saying, this food is shit. This food is shit. And it was. But never mind. You know what, Anne? The good news is exactly what we're just talking about. I've totally let go of it. I had to, but you were right. You were so good. You would just say very calmly, no matter how much ranting I was doing, you would say, Denise, you didn't come for the food. And you were right. Now,
yeah.
I had to get over it. I didn't want to, but I had to get over it. And the bottom line was, what I got out of the troop, and that's what I was starting to say, that we're all still in communication, and we're all on WhatsApp. If people know what that is, see, I used to go to Singapore to work and different places, and all the students would say to me, are you on WhatsApp? And I didn't know what they were talking about. That this is an international, it's a global free way for people to text and call each other.
Yeah.
So I had to get on it to keep in communication for us to go on this retreat. And now, so the listeners know, we have a stream. So we all, we talk, and then we've also have a private Facebook group that
I don't understand how that works, but anyway.
It's all fabulous. But here's the reason. After spending that time together, and those of the people that are listening that have written, and there's a lot of writers that listen to us, Anne, and people that a lot of our listeners are former students of Cindie's and mine. There are people that we worked with in the industry, so, and a lot of food people, food. So the bottom line was, as we've gotten back, and we became friends. You become friends because we're reading each of us is reading something that we wrote that is so personal, and you're in a safe place. And but there were days when people read and people said, oh, I'm not, and everybody's, and this is anybody that's ever been a writer knows. You think your work is shit. You don't want to read it out loud. It takes you a really long time to realize that your work is of value. But in the beginning, it's so hard for people. So these women, all women, I kept saying, men probably never write memoir, do they? Because they don't want to go that deep. I don't mean to be rude.
Well, my understanding is, yes, they do, because we know we've seen them, and some of them are people that Alison Wearing says. Yes. And she quotes and uses as good examples. So very rarely they do.
Rarely. I think they write about war. I think they write about their war memoirs. And
can I just say one thing on that note? Because I've also done 3 psychotherapy training courses. So in the middle of all of the things that I've been doing, every now and then, when I found out that in the first place I said, oh my God, I'm neurotic, that I was 28 at the time. Oh my God, I'm neurotic. I identify with that bloody New York fella who made all the movies, Annie Hall. You know the one I'm talking about. Little short ass guy. Thank you. I just said little short ass guy. But anyway, so it was when I thought I was neurotic, and I went to therapy, but she said to me, yes, you can do this faster. When I asked her, you can actually do the training course. And I said, oh, me, I'm only a nurse. She said, oh, don't be ridiculous, Anne. So I did it first for 2 years part-time while I was working, and then I did it again when Joshua was about 12, actually. I know exactly how old he was. That was a 3-year part-time thing. And then I did another different somatic psychotherapy course called Hakomi in 2017, 2018. So I have 3 times in my life said, all right, go and do something about your psyche, mate.
Yes. What a wonderful thing. How healthy.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way, isn't it?
Well, and and the same thing with you writing, people, the women that were there, this is what I kept thinking.
Yeah.
A lot of the first things, and this is because they're new writers, they were writing about terribly painful experiences. I mean, someday I couldn't even make eye contact sometimes after somebody had written, only because I admired them.
Yeah.
I was also horrified that this had happened to them in life. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Nothing but absolute, you just, and also, but I admired them so much that they were brave enough to write about it. I mean, this was deep stuff.
Yeah, and what they showed, Denise, is dignity and respect. Dignity and self-respect, even though that was a struggle, because it is when you have been traumatized.
Absolutely. And so that's maybe why you understood my trauma about the food.
Well, darling, yes, I did. And I would have been recommending you to go and have some sort of somatic psychotherapy. I mean, I would have done it for you, mate. You know?
And all I'm going to say is this, because you will understand it, but I've complained about it. I'm going to say this: canned green beans in Tuscany. That's all I'm going to say. Now, so here's another conversation that we had, Anne, so that people will understand.
Yeah.
So we're all now, what has been, talk about the buddy system, which I think, again, aging well, one of the things that I think about, Anne, is what we've talked about. Movement. You're always in motion. And the body surfer. She's this, she's that. Every time I'm sending her a text, she goes, oh, gotta that. So way to the beach. Oh, and then she faxes, see how old I am. She emails or texts me a picture, and she's always surrounded by like 20-year-old kids that you've met at the beach.
That's right. Or anywhere.
Anyway, your social network. So we're talking about movement and social network. And I see you, and I know this in the same way. I have a lot of young friends. They were students of Cindie's and mine. They came to us, and took food styling classes, or they were new baby chefs or whatever. When I talk to those women, when I'm out with women that are young girls that are younger than me, it gives me a lift.
Yeah.
It gives me a lift.
Yeah, what happens with me is I start conversations. For example, when I was at the beach on the last weekend, 2 young girls, and I'm talking very young, 14, 15, 16, max, the ones that I sent you the photograph of me with. They're very interested to hear about my life, my nursing, my worldview.
Yes.
What I feel about them being as young as they are now, and how fabulously wonderful I think that is. And I tell them, you guys are just fabulous. You're wonderful. Yeah. And I do say, Denise, don't touch your lips and leave your boobs alone.
That's right.
I say that to every young group of women I run into. And, they hang around. Fortunately, today they hang around in groups, and that's wonderful. Yeah. So, you can get 6 or 7 of them all at once. And I do say to every little group, don't touch your lips and leave your boobs alone.
That, you know what? I think that's the name of a book.
Yeah, well, I say it to every group of young women, because as far as I'm concerned, the next thing I say to them is, you are so beautiful just the way you are.
It's true.
Please don't believe that you need to change the way you look.
It's gorgeous. True. It's true. And this is, honey, now. So we've talked about movement and social network and being involved, Anne, and having other interests. See, this is the thing. And I know what you're saying during COVID and melancholy and different things, and you'd moved. So when I first retired, it was just so different because I'd worked for 50 years every day. Yeah. And all of a sudden I didn't have to. I miss Cindie. That's why we started the podcast.
And, great.
But the first year it was okay, because I learned to go to the doctor when something hurt instead of just working through it. I mean, I had to adjust. I also, you know what, Anne? I had to learn to live with my husband of 30 years again, because you know what? When you both work, he had his own business, I had my own business. We would see each other for an hour in the morning. Yeah. I come home, I pour a glass of wine. He usually doesn't. I would make us a little dinner. We'd watch TV for an hour. We'd go to sleep. So in reality, except for a few trips, I feel like that for 30 years, we were only together 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, we bought a new house, sold our other two houses, moved away from Los Angeles, moved north to Ventura. And I looked around. So there's no Cindie. And now I've got this stranger, this man who's not going to work anymore. And without his job, at first I thought, wow,
who is this guy?
And he's kind of annoying. At first I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, he's annoying. And
what was I thinking when I married him 30 years ago?
So then that was that year. And then COVID hit. But for us, Anne, and I feel so badly for people that didn't have this, who had terrible situations during COVID. But because we were literally forced to entertain each other, we developed a new pattern in our marriage. He plays his guitar in the afternoon. When I close the bedroom door or my office door, I'm reading and I don't want to be disturbed. So we developed a whole new relationship.
You renegotiated.
That's exactly right.
Renegotiated.
But I do know this. Again, in social aspects, if you, as we age, as we mature, younger people in your life, interests in your life, all those things. I have one or two friends that will say to me, well, my mother just shut down. Well, I can't think of anything worse than not having an interest and just sitting in the chair. You know what I mean? And that's why.
Yeah.
Now, you were a total beacon of light when we were in Tuscany, and the other person who was totally inspiration to me, who was your friend, was Carol, who lives in Tasmania. And I just want to say this, and Carol had a terrible accident more than half of her life ago, so she needs walking sticks. And yet, so here's this, I see her the first day, charming, so darling, and that smile, but she's on walking sticks in that winery without a paved road in sight.
Yeah, it's just pebbles and
potholes. And there she was, and same getting in off her bus or anything. And one of the moments, Anne, which is why I'm so grateful that I can go places and I can meet new people. But I looked at Carol and I thought, Denise, next time you want to get out of bed and complain about something, you got to think about Carol.
Yeah.
Because
to me,
that's what I got out of Tuscany.
Yeah. As we both know, so many people of our age who don't have our physical capacity to do. See, the thing is, what I got from Mooloolaba is how to body surf.
Yes.
I didn't get training. I just got thrown into the surf. So you're either drowning or swimming. So you might as well be doing the swimming because the other one doesn't last long.
And isn't that a story of life? You're either drowning or you're swimming. Now, we are, Anne, I have to tell you, I just want people to know. So what happened is we're all in contact because we're all taking the course again. Okay, writing course, which was lovely that we, Alison, who is created the course, was kind enough to all let us take the course again without charging us. So that
she's extraordinary.
She's extraordinary. And I just want to say, if you Google her, you'll find her, Alison Waring. And I have taken many writing courses in groups in my lifetime. And this is, to me, the most successful for me and for my writing. But what's really fun now is when everybody first said, and Alison not Waring, our friend Alison Tucker, she proposed to all of us that we all take the course together again. And when she first said it, Anne, I thought, oh God, that'll never work. Do you know what I mean? Because there's too many differences, and I don't want to listen to whining or if someone's complaining about the scraping chairs.
But, right. Stop scraping the bloody chairs. Yes, exactly so. Well, I can't hear them because they're in another country.
Thank you. But the other side of the coin is I didn't care how many people I told that I didn't like the food. So, Bad on me, but never mind. Behind all that, what is wonderful is moving forward, and I want to say this to our audience, to be sitting in your home and to want to be a writer. There are so many resources out there, but is it hard to get up every morning and say, oh, let me just sit at my computer to a blank page and write? Well, of course it is. It's her. I've written, Anne, and the books that I accomplished, I did it. There were two things. One, Cindie helped me on every single one. We co-wrote these books, so a lot of them, or she would help me with the technical skills. If, I would write the stuff and then she would insert it into the book. But the other thing was I was getting paid.
Yeah. Yep.
When you're getting paid, and you have a deadline, and you've taken someone's check, it's easy to write to me.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit like either drowning or swimming, isn't it, mate?
Yes. So now
it's the same. You're either writing or you're not writing.
But with our little group now, which I'm so grateful for, and you were the first person that did their homework last week. You posted I think you were the first person. We post our homework if we want to. You don't have to. But the thing that's amazing is the accountability that we all feel to have something by Friday.
Yeah.
I've been writing like a maniac.
See, once again, Denise, what we have in this little Tuscany group, and I am the first person to say all I'm doing is sitting back here in Australia doing nothing very much, is Alison not wearing, so Alison Tucker, and Terry Neal. They are the central hub. Without them, we would not be doing this. So it proves another point. You have to have people who are interested, engaged, involved, and committed. That's who are doing what they're doing for love, not for money.
You're right. And so they've created this. I mean, it's wonderful. So I want to say that again to people: when you retire, or if you are no longer working, if there is something you can do outside of yourself, and that's, people say volunteer work and stuff. I'm still looking, and it's been a couple of years, meaning that we got through COVID, but I tried one or two things. It wasn't a good match for me. So I'm looking at now at a horse rescue place in Ojai, where I just go and feed the horses and clean some of the stalls and stuff. I think that'll work. I tried one or two other things, and see, because I can adopt a horse, but I can't bring it home. I looked at the animal shelter, and I was so depressed when I left because I felt so bad for all those dogs. I wrote them a check, but I can't be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but don't forget you're also doing beyond. You're doing beyond.
I do. Certain age. I love talking to people.
Yeah.
But
you're not sitting on your backside doing nothing.
But so here's what I want to say to people, which is the best part to me about aging well, which I look at you as a beacon of aging well. Body surfing with youngsters, keeping all sorts of movement going. You see your family. You talk about your brothers and sisters, but you're writing. You take photography. And then, Anne, when you said to me a couple of days ago, I got a job, I thought, what? So tell us that. And then
Well, see, what happened is, because I made the decision, I was turning 75, and I said to myself, hang on, what are you doing sitting around here doing nothing, you silly woman? I had been walking every day. It was that I hadn't stopped that. I also talked with other people, but I was not in any way involved the way I am. And I got to the beginning of 2023, and I said to myself, right, this is it. Get on with it. So I booked myself to go to Bali. I went to Bali, and I had 2 weeks. Can I tell you, I was on the back of a motorbike every day of the week, and not once did I break a bone.
So proud of you.
Then I got back here. I signed up for Memoir Inc. with Alison. I went down surfing to Stradbroke. I fell off the wave, and I broke my collarbone. I didn't just break it. I broke it in 6 small pieces, which were almost irretrievable. So did I do a good job? Oh, yes, I sure did.
It didn't keep you down. You hardly.
No, I've now got a bar and 8 nails holding it in, right? and I came to Tuscany because by that time I had communicated with Carol. I'd been down to stay with her down at her place in Tassie. And Tasmania, that is, for anybody who doesn't understand. That's this tiny little place right down the bottom of Australia. It's got, seagulls and birds and occasional people. Yeah. Very beautiful little place. And I was down there, and then I was back up here. But beforehand, Carol said to me, Anne, take some money out of your super. And I said, oh, well, that's for my old age. And she said, oh, I didn't actually. I said, yes. I said, Carol, get off the phone. I'm going to see if they've got a place in Tuscany. And she did get off the phone, and they did have a place, and I booked in. And then I rang her back and said, well, as it turns out, I've now booked. So that's how I got to Tuscany. While I was there, of course, I went to England and Scotland because I have a nursing friend in Scotland, da-dee-da-dee-da. Well, I'm continuing because I've got to tell you the rest of the thing. Tuscany came back to Australia. By the way, I talked to all the Italians in my tiny little bit of Italian and very insistent English. And they all loved it. And I have photographs of me with Italians everywhere as well. So it isn't just Australians or Scots or Brits. Everybody is involved in this. So when I came back, I went down to Melbourne, having booked to go to South America in February. I went to Melbourne, minding my own business, bought a pair of op-shop jeans for $4. They cost me $404 because I had to go to the hospital to get my fractured wrist fixed. I have had 2 broken bones all in the last 6 months.
But never before in your life.
That hasn't stopped me. I started nursing yesterday.
No. When you sent me the picture of the broken wrist, but your manicure was still perfect. I thought to myself, okay, there's no holding her back. So tell us this. You decided to find a part-time job to go back.
Yes, I did. And I've been looking for the year, but I was sort of going to Coles and telling them I'm available and da-da-da-da-da. I saw a woman in the pharmacy just down the road. She was with an elderly woman, and she was obviously helping the elderly. Now, I've seen this many millions of times. Sure. Don't misunderstand me, but she had a little decal on a shirt.
Yeah.
And I said, now, who are you working for? And she said, I work for Flexi Care. And I said, well, don't just stand there. How do I contact them? And she said, you look them up. I said, righto. So I did. And I had an interview that following day. Except they told me it wasn't really an interview. It was more like a chat, but it was an interview. They're just bullshitting, aren't they? Yeah. Anyway, I had already sent them my CV. They didn't need to interview me.
Got it.
50 years, excuse me. I'm a palliative care expert. I'm a cancer nurse expert, and I'm a midwife. What else do we need? We got the beginning and the end and everything in between. Yes. So yesterday I had my first shift. I was a buddy with somebody who took me around to her 4 clients for the day.
Got it.
It was fabulous.
I'm so proud of you.
I was back into being a very, very good nurse within minutes of getting into her car, actually.
Yeah.
So it was, but you see, that's what I do. Wherever I am, Denise, in the world, when I'm talking to those groups of young women, I'm actually educating and caring. I'm a midwife, so I can educate from that side. I'm a palliative care nurse. I can talk about that. I'm a cancer nurse. I can talk about that. You know, you name it, I can talk. Well, actually, under cement, really.
And now I have to tell you, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest today.
My pleasure, love.
I want you to come back because and I will tell people because you were.
Would you mind telling them that I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be
now
I have to you?
Now, only you again. It's you with the perfect manicure but a broken wrist. When I said, Anne, I'd love you to be a guest on the podcast. If people don't know, Anne's 18 hours ahead of us.
Yep.
So that meant that for Cindie and I to do it at 10 o'clock here in LA, Anne had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And when she told me that, I immediately said, no, it's ridiculous. We can't do that. That's horrible. And you said to me, Al, just think it's like I'm getting ready to deliver a baby.
Yeah, or I'm on a night duty shift, so don't worry about it. I mean, whatever, I did that for years. It's easy. It's just a matter of getting up. And it was 3 o'clock, not 4. Would you get it right?
Okay. Oh, my God. Now, I want you to come back and be a guest. And what I'd love to talk about, because I know the audience would be fascinated, is about when you were at the end of people's lives.
Yes.
Yes. And your experiences with their death. Because
I have the most fabulously sad, heartbreaking, and wonderful experiences.
That's what we will talk about it again.
Yep.
And I cannot thank you enough for today. I hope that I asked you the questions. I think I told you this, but talk about it really, Anne. It's about aging well. That's what you.
Well, I think you did very well. And every now and then you had to sort of stop me in my tracks and redirect me. You did a good job. Renegotiate. Excuse me, get the fucking horse. Talk about horses. Grab that horse and stop it from running away.
Yes.
But that's okay. That's only because I've got so much energy.
You do. It's wonderful. I want to thank everyone that listens. I want to tell people that we will post this. We're going to post some pictures of Anne when Cindie puts it up to broadcast the podcast. I want to thank Cindie because Cindie keeps the train on the tracks. Otherwise, this would never happen. And Anne to come back and be a guest with us again. And the other thought that I have about you being a guest again is then we'll talk about your progress on the writing that you've been doing, because I think that would be I know this. 2 or 3 of the women in our group now, in our Tuscany troupe, that said they never have written anything, have turned in 1 or 2 incredible exercises.
Yes.
Just proving that if you set your mind to it, that you can do it.
If I can just make a simple comment on that, Denise, which is pretty impressive for me to do anything simple. You see, my story is my specific, and this is, by the way, Alison, this is not me, except I know this too. My story is my idiosyncratic, individual, iconic story.
Yes.
As is yours, as is Cindie's, as is everybody else on the group. And given that we've got how many millions of people in the world, is beyond my comprehension to even begin to think. I know there's 27 million Australians, which is not a great number for the country size. Every one of those people is different. And therefore, what I write may not appeal to the vast majority, but it may appeal to 1 or 200 or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? So everybody's writing is so idiosyncratic and so relevant and so much their life.
Yes.
There's no right way to write.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. All right, madam. Well,
all right, darling.
I want to thank you again. I'm sure you're going out to build a building or redo something this afternoon. I know maybe you'll go back to bed for an hour or 2 before.
I could do, but then I'm going down to my local cafe for a coffee, which, by the way, isn't the best coffee in the world, but it's the best place.
There you go.
So I don't go for the coffee. I go for the place. Now, that's a lesson for you, Missy.
You are correct. Thank you, Anne. All right. Thank you, Miss Cindie. Thank you for everyone that listens. If you have any questions, you want to reach out to us at womanbeyond@icloud.com. And Anne, thank you again. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Pleasure. Okay. Fabulous. Bye, love.